Now, it's only recently that I've actually really heard the phrase situationship, which was, F buddies, which is, pay for play, which is, well, I'm kind of pay for play, transactional, or basically friends with benefits. That might have been the 2000s term. Now we have situationships. And for those that are out there that don't realize that if they think they're in a relationship, I always think women always get this kind of caught up in this. But guys and girls get caught up in this and say, okay, am I with somebody that is just a friend with benefits? And trying to call it a situationship, it's like a nicer way of trying to say it's a ship, but it's like, it's not anything, not a friendship, not a relationship. Situationship is friends with benefits. Still feels like that to me. Now, if y'all have to go and ask the official, what is actually like the technical definition? The Oxford Language Dictionary actually says it's a romantic or sexual relationship that is not considered to be formal or established. Right. You get together and hook up. And the boundaries, there's things that you can be said about that, but the rules are pretty simple. It's like, always remember that the other person doesn't belong to you. Take what they say to heart. Pay attention to how the other person is treating you. Keep your emotions at a distance. The thing is, it's just, you're taking part of a relationship, but out of fear making things serious or messy, you don't label it. And that's what it is. And there are some people that just don't want to be put into that because they don't want to feel like they're defining the relationship. They want to make it where like, okay, am I your boyfriend or am I your girlfriend? You don't want to have that. And some people just have that kind of anxiety about it, but it happens. And so this story from Psychology Today talks about what your status is. How do you know if you're in a relationship or a situationship? And there's 5 things they talk about. Number 1 is noticing the signs early. So you're confused about what you are. So you don't know if you and your partner are at the what are we conversation. Plans are mostly last minute and short term. And the emotional connection feels shallow. And the relationship is not exclusive. And there's no future on the horizon. So the unfortunate part, there are some people that think that situations can be converted into relationships. No. I know because for the most part, in my 30s, this is what I did. I was in situationships, but we didn't call it that. We called it friends with benefits. We called it F buddies. That's what it was. All there is. And so for me, I know that when it was for me going into that, I might have only seen the person maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and that was it. Like, you're lucky if you're able to keep something pretty consistent. But then the situationship, there's also the part where when people are very much working and both people are very much active and they're involved in what they're doing with work, they don't have the time to go ahead and put into the relationship. And that's the part that needs to be understood as well. That has to be explained. In a situationship, you actually get that explanation. I actually did that. I remember when I had to think about the time I had available. It was different because, when I'll tell you what, like this. I used to work down in Fort Lauderdale, and it was like an hour and a half drive for me to go down there to go work. And if I wanted to go and hook up with somebody, it was easy to go meet people in Fort Lauderdale for whatever reason it was. And when I did, then I would go ahead and say, okay, well, let's meet up. And I would always say, okay, if you want to meet up, I get done at 9:00 at night. And I would say, oh, let's go ahead and meet up. And what happened to me was I was the office was right off the main strip. And we had a whole bank of hotels sitting down the street. And I could stop at one of those and say, okay, I'm going to go in there, book a room, come on over. And that's what happened. And I was one of the easier ways to go and do it. And that was where you can make the time and say, okay, here, let's just say, all right, can you make time? Are you able to free up a couple of hours ahead? You set things up. Maybe you do dinner beforehand. Maybe you do something before, but honestly, you never do. Usually just get to the scene, one place you're meeting. You might not even be dressed up. You're just there for the purpose. And that's what a situationship would be. Pretty much that. It's very sex related, sex laden. Number 2 in this list is be honest about your feelings and ask for what you want. And they're saying that, if you're interested in developing the situationship into something serious, you got to have that talk. You got to have it early. Because if you're just feeling like, okay, there's something here, but if it goes out and stretches out for a long time, you're already going to be accustomed. You can't want to just stay into that. I don't see it, and I never thought it was going to be that way anyway. Plus, you can't go into the mindset, and they're not saying in the story, but you can't go into the mindset thinking you're going to convert it. Because you're already thinking of trying to attach. And that was the point. You didn't want no strings attached. Now you're trying to create the attachment. And that's a different talk. And you have to explain yourself. Okay, I know what I said was before, but I can't help but say this. You actually just need to have that heart to heart and just really be completely honest and transparent about your feelings. Okay, this is what's happening. But in any situationship, you just have to realize that you have nothing to lose. That person could go away, find a boyfriend, find a girlfriend, whatever, find a partner, and they're gone, or they're moving away, whatever it might be, or change the schedule. Anything like that can happen. So you just have to be able to enjoy the moments that you have and go with it. Number 3 on this list is communicate openly, not passively. And it's about you who does not want something more than a casual relationship than taking a passive approach. You want to if you do want something more than a casual relationship, then you need to make something clear. And that's where some people just don't communicate enough, not emotionally communicate, effectively communicate and say, listen, this is what I want, and say it early on. Because in this story, they say that if you want something more, you're looking for a committed relationship, you need to communicate that you need that with your partner. If at any point you feel like your situationship is jeopardizing your mental health, then get out of it or consult a therapist. Because if you are putting yourself out there and you're easily a needy person and you feel like, well, you need much more out of somebody, then you need to make that point known. You can't just sit there and think you can do that. Because honestly, certain people, I think more men are accustomed to doing this and be able to go ahead and, set up and get together with somebody. But it's just not easy. It's a hard thing to try to make happen. So I would say if you're going to do it, no strings attached, no feelings attached. You have to make sure you do that. That's from experience. And then you can go off and be depraved and debaucherous.